Hi everyone and welcome to Sports Scene. I'm Curran Rastogi.
I'm Fiumefreddo.
I'm Roddy.
And I'm Nia Harris. USC women's basketball proves they will fight on to the finish. Friday, the team had a comeback victory against the Oregon Ducks, and Sunday, the Trojans had a clutch win in overtime against Oregon State. Women's basketball broke a 12-game losing streak against Oregon. Okeko Adika was the standout player of this game, ending with a double-double, 18 points, 11 rebounds with 4 three-pointers made. Rhea Marshall dominated on the defensive end of the ball with 7 blocks. On Sunday, the Trojans prevailed in a clutch game against Oregon State. Destiny Littleton's competitive scoring ability and Clarice Akunwafo's big-time shot in the ending seconds of overtime pushed the team to a 60-56 victory.
All games are going to be like this. It's about who's going to be the toughest and, who really wants it more. And I think our team really wants it. We don't want to lose at this point of the season, and it really shows out there.
USC women's basketball is ranked number 25 on the NCAA list. Their conference record is 9-5. Their overall record is 19-6. They've won 13 home games, only losing 2 home games. Their record for away games is 6-3. In the Pac-12 conference, they are currently ranked number 6. Other Pac-12 teams ranked on the NCAA list include number 3 Stanford, number 4 Utah, number 16 UCLA, number 18 Arizona, and number 21 Colorado. Head coach Lindsay Gottlieb is thrilled to see her team break the top 25. Gottlieb will be familiar with the game in Berkeley, as she coached the Golden Bears from 2011 to 2019. She looks to bring the Trojans to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2014. From the team's performances against Oregon and Oregon State, what are your thoughts on the team's future?
Well, it's simple. This is an amazing showing of what happens over a year. You had a women's basketball team that was fighting to make the NIT tournament a few years ago to now being ranked for the first time in 6 years, and not to mention won 8 of their last 10. They knocked off number 2 ranked Stanford. This program's heading in the right direction under Lindsay Gottlieb, and she should have no reason not to be celebrating how good this team's been and that they deserve to be this number 25 team in the AP Top 25.
What sticks out to me is how the team's developed defensively. 7 blocks from Marshall is just phenomenal.
Marshall has definitely been going crazy on the defensive end of the ball. She had 11 rebounds in a game against Oregon. She had 14 rebounds in a game against Oregon State. She's definitely been showing that she has what it takes to help in the paint, what the team needs defensively.
And you're leaving out the fact that Rhea Marshall, in the 2 games against the Arizona schools, had 20-plus rebounds in both of those. She's averaging 16.5 boards in the last 4 games. Not to mention the fact she's also the only one on the team averaging a double-double. As the 3rd scoring option, that's really impressive for the sophomore.
You're talking about an incredible defensive team, but let's show some love to the offense. Okeko Adika was money. She couldn't miss. It didn't seem like she could miss against Oregon. Oregon? Yeah. And then you have someone like Destiny Littleton who can hit pretty much every shot on the floor. This is a team that is versatile on offense. It's a versatile defensive team. And I think that's the type of team that goes far in March, that wins Pac-12 tournaments, that wins March Madness games.
I definitely have to agree on the offensive end of the ball. Okeko Adika, in the past 2 games, she has definitely stepped up as an outstanding player for them. And we all know that Destiny Littleton is going to perform how she needs to on the court.
My main concern for this team, though, is that the Pac-12 is a juggernaut this year in college basketball. 8 teams, I believe, are right now in the bracketology projections. Can USC hold their own? Because a first-round exit in the Pac-12 tournament could spell disaster for this team and the great season they're having.
I definitely believe that we've seen they have the comeback spirit in this last game against Oregon State, where they trailed most of the first half, but then they came back and they lessened Oregon's scoring in the second half. I will give them that matter of thought that they can definitely come back and they will perform better in the Pac-12.
And you spoke about the Pac-12. USC women's basketball has to play 2 more games this week. And after beating both Oregon schools, the Trojans travel up to Northern California to take on the Cal Golden Bears and the number 3 Stanford Cardinal. On Friday at 8 p.m., the Trojans play the Stanford Cardinal. In their first meeting, USC upset the Cardinal 55-46 at Galen Center. Since then, Stanford has a record of 7-1, beating 3 ranked opponents along the way. Then, on Sunday, USC plays Cal. Coach Gottlieb previously was the head coach for Cal for 8 seasons before moving to the Cleveland Cavaliers and then USC. Cal will be looking to avenge the 20-point loss they took when they last played the Trojans on January 13th. So my question is, you're playing 2 great teams. What do the Trojans need to do in order to beat these teams, win the games?
Definitely believe paying attention to the turnovers. That's been a problem for us in the past couple of games. They have had 16 turnovers, 12 turnovers, and also making the free throws. Free throws definitely win games. You know, they kind of help you in those scoring areas where you may not be doing so good offensively, but making those free throws will definitely help.
I'm going to say I think the team ought to feature Boogie Ellis more. In the opportunities he's gotten as the main guy on this men's basketball team, he's gotten the job done. It's like he averages at least 20 points a game whenever he's given the opportunity to star.
And I think you're jumping the gun a little bit. We're still focusing on the women's side. They got Stanford and Cal as well.
Oh, excuse me.
We'll get up to that in a little bit, but unfortunately for the Trojans, they're going to need a miracle to take down the Stanford Cardinal again. They already did it, and phenomenal game for them, but this is a Stanford Cardinal team that they had a fluke, bad game. It happens. They were on the road. Now you got to travel into Stanford. It's going to be much tougher. The only realistic scenario for this Trojans team is to hit their shots and keep scoring. They're undefeated, actually, when they shoot above their scoring average on the year, which is 39%. Very high, but definitely achievable.
Michael, I will say the miracle you're talking about, it's 58 points. The Trojans are undefeated, 18-0 this year when they hold a team under 58 points. They have the best defense in the Pac-12. If there's any team that's going to shut down this number 3 Stanford Cardinal team, they can do it. They have the second to lowest field goal percentage allowed, the lowest 3-point percentage allowed. They're not going to give you easy looks, and I think it's going to be easy.
So I guess if you combine the two things, then the Trojans should be fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely important.
So now we're going to move over to the men's side of things, and for them it was a tough trip up north. They lost to both Oregon and Oregon State in horrific fashion. The Ducks took the lead on the opening basket Thursday and never let the Trojans out in front, routing USC 78-60 despite 19 points from Boogie Ellis. And Folly Dante was too much for the Trojans, scoring 17 and adding 3 blocks. On Saturday, this was USC's only made 3 on 14 attempts. However, a career-high 19 points from Vince Iwuchukwu helped SC keep it close. And down 3, final shot, Boogie Ellis, no good. Beavers win 61-58. And despite those 2 losses, USC is still on the bubble for March Madness. But do they have to win out in order to go dancing in March?
I think they absolutely need to win out. I mean, the win over UCLA was huge, but at the end of the day, they've dropped so many games now that you're going to need to win every single game if you're going to want to make it into the tournament at this point. It's a competitive league.
I definitely have to agree with that. They have Stanford and Cal coming up next, which can pose some competitiveness against the teams, but they definitely have to win out all of these games for them to make it into the March Madness.
I actually don't think you need to win out. I actually think that the game, if you're USC basketball, obviously you don't play to lose. But if you were to look at a game on the schedule and say, hey, this is a game that is potentially losable, it's actually Arizona State, the last game of the season.
Really? You don't think Arizona?
Because here's the thing. Arizona, we saw what the UCLA win did for USC's record. Their metrics that the NCAA tournament uses go crazy high. And against teams that have similar records in home environments against like Arizona, that game, USC has done better in those games. Now you need to beat these. You need to beat Colorado, Utah, and Arizona. I think you can beat all three of these teams. I think if you win those 5 games, particularly if you do well against Cal and Stanford, I think you can become a lock before the Pac-12 tournament, just based off of how the actual bubble looks, because it doesn't really look very pretty right now.
The Pac-12 tournament's going to be key, but we've seen ups and downs from all these players on the team. Who's a guy that you think needs to really show out the next 6 games and in the Pac-12 tournament before we can talk about the Trojans getting into March.
I did jump the gun a little with Boogie Ellis, but I'll stick to my guns there. I do think Boogie Ellis is going to need to be the guy and step up into the spotlight if the Trojans want to win these last games and make it into the tournament. That being said, Drew Peterson has been a disappointment this year in no matter which way you look at it. So I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Drew Peterson leads the team in turnovers right now, 76 total turnovers. That's about 3 a game for this team. Drew Peterson's there to be the leader of this team, and he's frankly shifting that over to Boogie Ellis. But with Drew Peterson, he's the best scorer on this team, and I'd like to see him become a little bit more selfish with the rock. You know, you can see some of these jump shots he hits absurd, and if he's passing the ball, he's not going to be able to do that. So Drew needs to be a little bit selfish. You know, we hurt Kobe Bryant's legacy, calling him a ball hog. This is where Drew Peterson needs to harness his inner Mamba mentality.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with Drew Peterson. I think he needs to be a lot more aggressive. There are so many times in games where he's driving the baseline, but he's not looking for a shot, right? He's not looking to lay the ball up. He's not looking to take a tough shot, but he can hit those shots. He has a proven track record of making clutch shots and hitting shots that most people can't really hit. So I think that's what you need. You need your shot makers to make as many shots as possible.
I'm going to have to agree with you, and I'm going with Boogie Ellis. We've seen in the last 2 games against Oregon and Oregon State for the men's basketball team that when Boogie didn't have a great game, we see that the team didn't do as well on the offensive end of the ball. And when he's scoring those 31 points and when he's driving to the basket and he's hitting those shots from the key, I definitely think that will help the team on the offensive end, and he's a very standout player for the offensive end of USC's team.
Well, we're going to have to see how the Trojans improve this upcoming weekend, where they look to bounce back from the 0-2 weekend up north with a couple games back home at the Galen Center. USC will take on Cal Thursday and Stanford on Saturday. The Cal Golden Bears are also coming off an 0-2 weekend against the Arizona teams. Cal, with a 3-22 record this season, has lost its last 9. The Trojans beat the Golden Bears in November. Stanford, on the other hand, is fresh off an upset win against then-ranked number 4 Arizona. USC has not seen the Cardinal this season, but they went 0-2 against the Trees last year. Stanford has won 6 of its last 8 games. So we talked about the men's team and how they've struggled, but what can they do differently in these 2 games to bounce back from the horrendous effort we saw last weekend?
Listen, I think we briefly spoke about the brackets and how everything works. And although Cal is not, I mean, they're 3-22. They don't have the most impressive record. The best thing a USC team can do is blow them out. I'm not talking 10 points. I'm not talking 15 points. I'm talking 30 points, that kind of thing, because that is going to infinitely improve your metrics, and that's a confidence-boosting win. So I think making your shots, playing the defense, passing the ball. USC has a lot of gifted passers on this team, moving this ball. I think that is what's going to help them do that and really raise the program.
USC needs to use this Cal game as basically a shoot-around, tune-up game. This is a practice session for the Trojans. The Golden Bears are letting up the highest field goal percentage against in the Pac-12 this year. They're a team, they're having a sad year, but you need to come out of this game, just use it to get your shots up. USC went 5-30 last weekend from shooting 3-pointers. They need to get better at that if they're going to make a run at March.
I 100% agree that Cal needs to be a blowout. I think you can compare it almost to football in the sense that at the beginning of the football seasons, you usually have USC playing teams like Rice and Bowling Green, just these teams that you've almost never heard of, right?
Tune-up game.
Right. So I think that is exactly how the Trojans need to be treating this Cal game. You need to blow them out, and anything other than blowing them out should be seen as a disappointment.
Definitely. The last time we played against Cal, we won 20. We won against them over 20 points. And I definitely think that this game, as you said, this should be like a shoot-around game, a practice game where they are perfecting those things and getting ready for Stanford, and also just staying out of foul trouble as well. Those petty small fouls, just making sure that you aren't making those so that you can keep those key players in the game to help you.
One thing I'd also like to see, though, and we haven't mentioned him yet, but Vince Iwuchukwu coming off a career-high game scoring. He's got a 7'1" bigger defender he's got to play on Cal. I want to see his defense get a little bit better. They're missing Josh Morgan, still out with injury. Iwuchukwu, we know the offensive output he gives us, But what can he do on the defensive end to maybe push for a starting lineup role in USC's lineup, maybe playing alongside Morgan, but moving forward, becoming the best player that USC wants him to be?
I mean, I have a soft spot for Vince Iwuchukwu. He coached my intramural basketball team in the
Really?
playoffs. We won the game. It was due to his coaching largely. But I think what he needs to do on the defensive end, as you just mentioned, is he really needs to work on his footwork. What you've noticed is a lot of times you get out of position, you let other guys take easy positions where they can make a layup, where they can potentially draw a foul, and that's kind of where you let up points. That's where you give up fouls. So working on the footwork, increasing his post presence, I think those are the kinds of things that are going to translate well here. They're going to translate well in the tournament, if the NBA, and even the Big Ten if he decides to stick it out another year.
Definitely post presence. He needs to use his 7'1" height to his advantage in the post, and take those blocks and help create those opportunities for his team to be able to score outside on the key.
All right, well, Kansas City Chiefs receiver and former USC Trojan Juju Smith-Schuster was all smiles today at the team's victory parade in downtown Kansas City. Yesterday, though, he was still battling Eagles players, this time over social media. Eagles cornerback James Bradbury was penalized for a hold on Smith-Schuster in the final minutes of the Super Bowl, setting the Chiefs up for a go-ahead field goal. But Smith-Schuster hasn't exactly been humble in victory. At any rate, it was all good vibes in Kansas City today as the Chiefs held their victory parade. Super Bowl MVP Patrick Mahomes could be seen rocking a WWE belt as he high-fived with fans. Smith-Schuster and his teammates basked in the glory of yet another championship for KC. For Valentine's Day, the 26-year-old tweeted an image of a mock Valentine displaying Bradbury's face, reading, "I'll hold you when it matters most." Eagles players haven't taken kindly to the jab. Receiver A.J. Brown responded, calling Smith-Schuster, quote, "TikTok boy." Smith-Schuster will enter free agency this offseason in search of a long-term deal, but it feels safe to say that at least for now, the former Trojan's mind is somewhere else entirely. All I want to know, though, guys, is was this a hold?
100% it was a hold.
Definitely was a
James
hold.
Bradbury even said it himself. And for anyone that thought the ref shouldn't have called it, boo-hoo. You missed the great ending of the game, but it shouldn't have even been that close to begin with. There were countless calls that went in Philadelphia's favor, i.e. the Miles Sanders fumble that was ruled back, Dallas Goedert's catch, and a defensive hold against Smith-Schuster at the end of the first half. So, frankly, that helped the game get better than it actually should have been, and the hold just gave the win to the right team, the better football team that day.
Yeah, I mean, like, the whole, you said the same thing. Like, a lot of people are saying, hey, they haven't been calling it all game this way. Or, hey, like, it's the last play of the game. Let's maybe let the players try to play a little. But you're a referee. You see the hold, you call the penalty, right? If you think there's a penalty on the field, you throw the flag. I think that the James Bradbury quite literally got his hand caught in the cookie jar, right, of Juju Smith-Schuster's jersey. I thought the tweet, by the way, was like really funny.
Absolutely
I thought it was an
hilarious.
NFL meme at first.
But here's the thing, though, with the holding call, I think the refs made it, they had to insert themselves into the end of the game like that. It's like that decided the game ultimately. I mean, there were plenty of plays earlier on in the game that you could point to. Like there was a huge Kadarius Toney return, and that really set the Chiefs up well. But it just feels like if you hadn't been calling those small little semi-holds all game, then when it comes down to it, when the game is on the line, you're going to suddenly start calling it differently than you did the entire game.
Exactly.
But then you get
taking the players off.
But then you get the flip side where all the Kansas City Chiefs supporters are saying it was a hold. It should have been called. There's no winner in this scenario.
With that, you can point to different, like, that's when you can say all game there were little holds that, like, the refs didn't call, because that's reasonable. The ref, every game, every single play, there are football players holding. But the refs don't always call it. Players learn what they can and can't get away with. And I think James Bradbury, really thought he could get away with that one, basing off of what he was allowed to prior to that in the game.
I definitely would have liked to let them let the game be played. As we were saying, that there were plenty other calls that could have been called, but they weren't. And this game deciding call that you choose to do something such as a holding, we knew that it was a holding call, a penalty, but let them play.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic game. At the end of the day, while it may not have ended in what some people see as the best way, it was still a very fun game to watch.
And at the end of the day, the better football team ended up winning. But huge congratulations to 2 USC players on that roster. You have Juju Smith-Schuster. You also have Ronald Jones getting his second ring, I believe. He had one in Tampa, now one with Kansas City. So congratulations to them and fight on.
Yeah. So baseball opens its season Friday at 6:30 at Dado Field versus Marist College. The Trojans will look to their new coach to make it back to the College World Series. On July 3rd, USC named former MLB player and Grand Canyon University head coach Andy Stankiewicz as its new head coach. Stankiewicz was named WAC Coach of the Year 4 times, and with Grand Canyon, won 5 regular season titles. Last year, the Trojans finished last place in the Pac-12 with a 25-28 record. USC parted ways with former head coach Jason Gill on June 6 and hired Stankiewicz less than a month later. The Trojans will need more production from their rotation and lineup, which were among the worst in the Pac-12. Before USC plays Marist Friday, here are some key players to look out for. Last year, senior outfielder Adrian Colon Rosado hit 8 home runs with 34 RBIs. Another senior, Nick Lopez, ended the year with 6 home runs and 33 RBIs. The Trojans will look to pitchers Tyler Stromsburg and Jaden Agassi as well to solidify the rotation. Despite having the most national championships in any Division I baseball program, they have 12, USC hasn't made the College World Series since 2001. My question to you guys is, what does the team need to do to build that kind of program and to win eventually?
Well, it starts with Andy Stankiewicz, and you can take that everything Mike Bone has done for the athletic department, bringing in guys like Lincoln Riley and Lindsey Gottlieb. Trojan football was down in the dumps. Call up Lincoln Riley, give him whatever he wanted, and now he's here turning USC's football team around. Lindsey Gottlieb, we mentioned, brought USC's women's basketball program from an NIT bid to now fighting for Pac-12 championships and tournament bids. Andy Stankiewicz, a guy that turned Grand Canyon University, of all teams, into a powerhouse in the Western Athletic Conference, now comes into a bigger market with USC. He's a great player developer. I'm excited to see what he can do with Trojan baseball and bring it back to the glory days.
Look, he brought Grand Canyon University from D2 to D1. That is the definition of building up a program. So I think this is one of the best names that Mike Bone could have gotten to hire for the baseball coach role.
Definitely, he has the professional experience with being in the MLB. Also, as we've been stating, how he has turned around Grand Canyon's program. And also, I think it's going to all just lead back to the team's chemistry and that restoring the program, because you have new transfers coming in. Most of the team now is going to have freshmen. You have some seniors that are returning, but it's just going to come back to the team's chemistry and how well they play together with so many new elements.
Yeah, I mean, USC sells itself as a recruiting powerhouse, right? Because USC is such a historic program, you can once you start winning, recruits are going to come, and I think so. Pretty much, Rome wasn't built in a day. Building over years and years, you're gonna hopefully get back to World Series. You're gonna make NCAA tournaments, and you're gonna have a team that Trojan fans will love.
And it all starts this Friday against Marist. But that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Sports Scene. Also, a huge congratulations to former Trojan DeMar DeRozan of the Chicago Bulls, who'll be playing in the NBA All-Star Game this weekend. But from everyone here at Annenberg Media, have a great rest of your Wednesday and fight on.